You good whenever?
Okay, call to order, DPW Building Committee meeting, October 16th, 2024, roll call.
Matthew here, Smith present.
Jonathan Marie here.
Jack Chandler present.
Meeting minutes from last, meeting on the 16th of September. Any questions or comments about them?
Make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
Meeting minutes so approved. Public session, any comments from the public? Okay, we can move on right to the meat of the meeting here. We'll open it up to Weston and Sampson.
Good evening, everybody. So with us tonight, we have Mike Richards and Della Donahue from Weston and Sampson. They have been kind of on this project from, I'll say, the beginning of, whatever the beginning is, and they'll kind of go through the timeline of how they got, to be part of this project so far. They have a great presentation for you this evening, so I'll let them go through it. If you guys a chance to ask questions and whatnot, we'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Ryan. Again, my name is Mike Richard. I'm with Weston Sampson's Facilities Group. Just a little background about us. Weston Sampson's been around for about 125 years, a little over 125 years at this point. Our facilities group is our, what I call it, our vertical component. We do the vertical construction part of Weston and Sampson. But really what our bread and butter is DPW facilities. 99, maybe not that much, but 95% of our work is public works facilities. That's what we specialize in. We do it up and down the East Coast. And we take a lot of pride in our work. We try to go and see our facilities years after it's been completed and operated in. We take away a lot of lessons learned and we try to take that on to the next customer. So like Ryan said, we got involved back when Jeff Nutting was the interim director. He called us out to complete just a high level feasibility study just to get an idea of what programming is and what potential costs could be. Shortly after, or right around the time we were about to complete the study, Ryan came on board and we kind of reviewed what we had done so far and made some adjustments with Ryan to cater more towards his vision rather than Jeff's vision. So we're here tonight to just give you an update. It's very similar update to the one we gave previously to the town, but we have updated a few things in it. So we're gonna share that with you, and Della's gonna get us going.
Yeah, so thank you all for being here. I'll get an agenda up front just to establish expectations. We'll introduce ourselves and the project team, give a little background, expand on that, talk about why a new facility is needed and the opportunities and benefits that could come with that. Some of the completed tasks to date, a status update of what we've done so far during that feasibility study, and now since it's been kind of reignited in 2024. We'll touch on order of magnitude costs and then go over some suggested next steps. So with Ryan and previously Jeff, we were working with the Department of Public Works. We had staff interviews, and today I recognize the committee here as part of the team going forward. Mike and I, we are with Weston and Sampson. We will be we provide architecture and engineering services. So like Mike and Ryan mentioned, we kicked off the study in July 2021, so a little while back. Shortly after, a few months, we put together an initial program package. A month later, 2 months later, was when Ryan was introduced and we submitted a draft feasibility study report. Winter months, holiday months, and we submitted the final report and presented to the DPW board at that time. I think there were some discussions internally within the town, and then Ryan and Mike and I met and did some early modifications to the program in response to some of the feedback we got from that presentation. And then shortly after, Ryan said, let's pump the brakes and reset and form a committee and then revisit once there's a group behind this. So here we are today with all you. So why a new facility? First, in terms of the role in the community, the DPW day-to-day is composed of these various divisions, so the administration, the water division, fleet maintenance, the highway, park and cemetery. But this site is also for some community-wide amenities like the town fueling station. There's a brush and leaf composting aspect. They store the fire prevention materials. There's residential salt and sand. It says salt and salt, I just realized. Christmas tree collection. So needless to say, aside from just the day-to-day divisions that they are composed of, they also reach out into the community in other ways. And they are also first responders, so they're on call during storm events, emergency events. First ones there, they're plowing the roads for police and fire. They're typically the last to leave as well. So everything from up here in New England, the snow and ice events, windstorms getting more frequent. So they are recognized as a first responder. Quick history, this building we're in today, 1958, so it's over 65 years old, and there's been various additions and renovations over the years. So different lean-tos added on, and a bit Frankenstein, if I do say so myself. So also in reference to the population, when this facility was built in 1958, around that time, the population grew pretty rapidly, and it's more than doubled since then. And with the more higher population comes more road miles to maintain, more responsibilities in general, larger fleet items, quantity-wise, and the size of the trucks themselves. So all of those increases, and they've made some additions, but they're working out of a facility that's undersized, so this negatively impacts their response time, general just efficiencies, employee safety, and health concerns with the migrating fumes and the vehicles that are parked outside that hinders their lifespan. So I touched on just some of those aspects. Essentially, the facility does not meet codes of today. The building code does not. It is not compliant with building code, the accessibility codes, OSHA. Those operational efficiencies are hindered for today and for future growth opportunities. There's inefficiencies with energy. Again, it's unsafe and unhealthy for the staff that works out of this facility, and there are structural deficiencies. Here are a couple examples. So some of the foundation is cracking. There's CMU breaks, like a step crack above some of the penetrations. There's water damage. I believe there's some examples of some leaks throughout the facility. These next few slides kind of show a side-by-side comparison of what they're working with today and what a more standard modern facility could provide. So office space is cluttered. There's not really adequate daylighting. In a newer facility, you would get the adequate furniture systems and proper daylighting. Same deal, this room we're in right now is the break room, but it's also doubling as these conference spaces. In a new facility, you could separate those, so you could have a conference meeting while the staff is using a separate break room. In terms of IT and data, this is pretty, I mean, the photos speak for themselves, I think. They're doing the best they can, but it is pretty clustered and a bit archaic compared to a new setup with a data rack. I mean, in terms of the SCADA, this is a risk, a security risk, and as a first responder, that could be a problem if things went down. Fleet maintenance. On the left, we can see low ceilings, pretty narrow bays, so that limits the mechanics from moving around the equipment they're maintaining with ease. There's clogged floor drains that are no longer working compared to a modern facility, which would have a dedicated fluid storage room with containing curbs. So if there's spills, it's contained. It's not at risk of leaking outside the building. There are high overhead doors. The structure and all the utilities are high above, so there's no risk of when you raise a truck potentially hitting the structure or clipping into fire protection system. Fleet storage, again, a lot of these trucks and plows and equipment are being stored outside in storage containers, but also just outside to exposed to the weather, which you can see some areas of rust. The vehicles, they can get inside, they're very tightly packed here. There's really no clearance for staff to walk around the truck safely. Compared to a center drive aisle storage arrangement where you could have your angled stacked parking for quick in and out as a first responder, you can really cut down on unproductive labor. If things are stored outside, the staff first has to clear it off, start up engines. That will take much longer than if it's in a minimally conditioned garage. And then in terms of salt shed and wash bay, the salt shed currently there's serious concern of it potentially failing the structure. So there's been some efforts to reinforce the walls, but even those braces are cracking. There is no wash bay currently. In a modern facility, typically the Public Works includes essentially a car wash to knock off any of the salts buildup that can corrode the vehicle faster. So it helps to really maintain the trucks and get the full lifespan out of these very expensive equipment pieces. And then fueling, the image on the right shows what a modern fuel station would look like with above ground tanks and some bulk storage bins, using blocks to keep the material within the block and not spill out onto the site, so you can really maximize your supply. So expanding on these opportunities and benefits with a new facility. Number one, safe and healthy. We design fume mitigation walls, so they're designed in a way that maintenance, the exhaust won't migrate into the administrative spaces. There's an increased lifespan that comes with storing vehicles inside, which reduces maintenance needs, replacement needs. The building would comply with codes and regulations and overall improve operational efficiencies in the response time. There could be large exterior spaces throughout the site for other town use. Different departments, other agencies in town could potentially use some of the exterior space to store their overflow material. And in terms of employee morale, it could help attract staff, retain staff, and all in all, meet the demands of today, but also for the next 75 years. So some repeat images here, but some things to call out. You can see in the bottom left image, some really nice daylighting coming into the training room. The organization of the fleet in the middle image. Same again, it's minimally conditioned, so it's not over the top, but it helps to keep those hydraulic hose and start up quicker and not adding to the response time. In a workshop, these spaces have high volumes, so you can get a mezzanine space in the rear, which is just premium bonus space for overflow storage, and a swing gate. You can get a forklift in there and lift up material to store in the back end of a mezzanine space of a shop. And at site scale, this is what a modern facility could look like. This is Holden. It was completed in 2022. It is a bit larger than what we have programmed for Sterling, but it gives a good idea of what these sites can look like. Careful separation of visitor staff traffic away from workforce traffic in the rear with security gates. Nice landscaping for stormwater management. There's a whole bunch of benefits at site scale.
One thing I just would like to call attention to is when you look at this facility, it's a pre-engineered metal building. It's metal paneled wall. Most of our facilities end up going that way. It's very cost effective means of construction. Very efficient for this type of of use.
Yeah, it reflects the function of the building. There's typically no frills, really. It is designed for the function of the building. So this next section I'll go over. We already started a review and confirmation with Ryan a few weeks ago. We sat to confirm our understanding of the staffing and the fleet, which is the key drivers for these facilities. So project status update. We got some more firm numbers on headcount as far as considerations for parking and locker rooms, and in terms of vehicle storage indoor or under a canopy, we really want to get them outside, get them under cover, ideally in a minimally conditioned garage, but canopy if not. So those numbers go into our understanding of the program. Here's a quick overview of this site. Currently, the building itself is about 16,000 square feet, I believe. But there's a bunch of areas throughout the site that is storing overflow equipment outside. So that needs to be taken into consideration when you compare our proposed program, about 36,800. Again, this building is 16,000, but keep in mind that 24,000 square feet of storage areas without coverage. So I think the numbers are justified. The largest space of that is that fleet storage garage. Luckily, that is the cheapest per square foot to construct. And it's critical for that quick response, keeping the center drive aisle free and having the two stacked rows of vehicles at an angle. But other than that, we have our admin and employee facilities, the workshops, fleet maintenance, and a wash bay. So taking those building blocks, we did a few conceptual site layouts using this site. There were a few good options here, but it really is maxing out the size of the parcels. It's pretty small to begin with, and when you consider setbacks, we are getting very tight into setbacks from the property line. So during that process, another site came up, the landfill site, or the sand pit behind the landfill site. So we looked at a few site plan concepts there using those same building blocks, but I'd like to call out this incorporates a drop-off loop for residential yard waste. So it adds another community amenity. So then in consideration that 38,000 program square footage, this graph shows how that compares to other communities. Mike can definitely articulate that a bit better.
Thank you, Della. Sorry, I've been sitting all day, so I'm gonna take this opportunity to stand. So a lot of people, Della talked about the program and the size that we came up with, and a lot of people, this is once in a career opportunity, once in a lifetime opportunity for the town to develop a public works facility, and that number that was just given, what was it, 36,000 is hard to understand for your residents, and probably you in this room and a lot of other people. So what we try to do is we try to give you a comparison. Other communities, what have they done? And what this graph represents is the vertical bars, if you will. Those are the space drivers. Those are what we see that drives the space. It's the number of operating groups, it's the number of staff, and the number of vehicles. Those are the key drivers. They're going to dictate how much space you need. The purple line, the horizontal line with the purple dots, represents the programming or the space on each one of those facilities. We'll go to this one. Back up. Oh, sorry, hit down for me.
You want me to go to the next slide?
No, yeah, just hit down. Should come up an arrow. So you can see where Sterling is. Did I mess that up?
Well, you right-clicked something.
I did. Thank you.
There we go.
There we go. You guys probably already found it by now, but so you can see where Sterling is.
So what is the purple again? So the light blue is what you're proposing.
The vertical bars
are the key drivers that we see when we program a facility,
That's
right?
the staff and
It-
the
Staff and
fleet.
vehicles.
Mhm.
And the number of operating groups is also important. The horizontal line, the purple line, is the square footage of each one of those spaces, each one of those municipalities. And where the yellow arrow is what we program for Sterling. Now, what the takeaway here is, you want to take a look at what is the relationship to that purple line compared to where those bars fall. And this is just a rule of thumb, right? Is really what we use it as a check. We give it to you as sort of a basis of understanding of what that program is. So to us, this means something. This tells a story, each one of these towns. For instance, Middleborough, Bourne, Orleans, those programs were significantly cut back. Rockport as well were significantly cut back from the original programming to try to fit it in with a certain dollar value. Bourne, day one, right after the ribbon cutting, they approached us and said, we need more space. So a situation that you just spent a lot of money, you may not want to be in. Longmeadow, after they built their facility, they approached us, the DPW director, and said, wow, we wish we didn't cut back that space. So they felt it right away when they moved in. Hopkinton, you see that relationship there, those bars. Hopkinton is right there. Hopkins, you see that relationship, those vertical bars compared to the horizontal line, very appropriately sized space. And the programming for Sterling right now, where we're at, seems to me to be very appropriately sized based on what we've seen for other facilities. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions on that? Okay, next slide, please.
Do all these towns have a water department too, and or does that play a factor, or you just figuring that with the staff?
No, not all of these. A lot of these do have water departments with them, but not all of these have a water department. That's a very good question.
But is your staff number and your number of vehicles would include water department if it had.
Yeah.
Correct.
If
Correct.
operating group.
So
Yeah.
So it would be water department is an operating group.
Exactly. Okay. So order of magnitude cost, we've been tracking this over a number of years. If we go to the next slide, we can see what the graph looks like. What's interesting about this is, you can see in 2004 to 2016, relatively modest increase in escalation over the years. 2016 to 2019 started increasing, and you all know what happened in 2020, hit the pandemic. We had everybody pull their projects from bidding that year. Holden was the only one that stuck with it. And I think at that point in time, the time that bid, there was a lot of uncertainty in the market. Contractor went in at it aggressively, not knowing what the future was going to hold. And they caught a great price. After that, 2021, we started seeing some very erratic pricing. We started seeing non-competitive bids. We started seeing the number of bidders drop. Contractors were flush with work, right? There were labor shortages, material shortages, everything kind of driving up the price for a lot of people. Pre-engineered metal buildings at that time was also, the lead time on them was, I think, 16 months or something ridiculous like that. And pre-engineered metal building companies weren't guaranteeing their pricing until like 3 weeks prior to delivery. How does a contractor hold his price on something like that? That uncertainty drives up the price. So fortunately, we're out of that situation now, but the trend continued for a couple of years. And you can see, 2022, you can see that range of pricing that we've got. That's a pretty big range. That's that vertical line that you see right there. That was the highest bid that we got, and that was the lowest bid that we got.
Those are all cost per square foot.
Cost per square foot, correct. So, 2024, we have some good information, but it's also still kind of erratic, if you will. We are opening another bid in about a month, so hopefully that will get us some good data. And what we've done is, because we don't feel very confident with the information from 2024 yet, we're really carrying back to, in 2023 was only one bid one project bid. So we went back to 2022 when we escalated out at 5%, that's the green line. We also escalated out at 8%, that's the red line. And that's kind of what we see is the trend for a lot of these facilities where we expect that they're going. And you can see that black diamond right there, 2026, what we would expect Sterling to come in and around. Based on what other people have been doing. I want to be very clear on that. Based on what other people have been doing. That's what we would expect.
What is, I can't read the numbers, there's anything really on that. What does that represent?
That's the dollar per square foot for your.
And what is it?
824.
824. Yeah. In 2026.
We just we were talking this morning and about what date to project out to. I said, certainly not sooner than 26, you know what I mean? 26, 27. I mean, we're out in that realm. So just to give you an idea of where that. Can only go out so far.
Dylan, can you go to the next slide? So if you look at this, I thought this was an interest. I showed this to Ryan earlier today, and this is, that same graph about projects that were bid. You can see, up to about 2019, it was kind of a tight. The vertical line represents the high bid and the low bid, and the blue horizontal line represents the average cost that we received on multiple projects. And you see it's kind of tight up to a certain point, and then 2021, that separation, it got pretty considerable. And again, 2023 was only one bid. So that's what we're up against. How do we carry this cost for you guys? I mean, one of the worst things that we can do, one of the biggest disservices that we can do for you is unfund your projects. So next slide. So here's the suggested next steps. 2024, I know you guys got money at town meeting to carry on with a little bit of stuff. One approach is, put out an RFQ for designer services now, select the designer. I think that could all happen this year. In 2025, that designer can carry on with additional due diligence. That due diligence is for a couple of reasons. One, get to a preferred site. We talked about two different sites, one up behind the landfill, one at this site here. And also do that due diligence to help refine the cost. One of the biggest unknowns at this point is what are the ground conditions and where we're going to go. So that's something that would be very advantageous to the town as you move forward, to try to identify some of those unknowns. And then go go to annual town meeting for funding for an owner's project manager and design funds. Owner's project manager is required by statute for any projects in excess of $1.5 million. Then put out an RFQ for the OPM and begin that design process, assuming you keep that same designer on board. 2026, start your public outreach. You can start that at any time. Some of this information from these meetings that you'll hold should be carried to the public as well. But 2026 should be really focused to the whole public, and we can help you develop a public outreach plan. And then go to town meeting for any remaining funds. I would anticipate A&E fees, if there's anything that you haven't encumbered yet, in construction funding. Move into construction documents and bidding, and then start construction. And we used to bid these projects at about 14 to 16 months, and we still have, the pre-engineered metal building issues or complications from a few years ago are all resolved, but there's still other things in terms of HVAC and electrical parts and labor shortages that we're extending our projects now, 18 to 24 months. So, and that all is impacted with us. And that's it.
Just so you guys know, I will send you all this presentation. I've got it this afternoon as well, so not to you personally.
How much of a wild card is the ground conditions of the site, and what is there something we can do sooner than later to try to figure out what that looks like?
Yeah, so we typically Ground improvements can vary significantly, subsurface conditions can vary significantly. You know, a lot of public works facilities we find have been treated almost like a landfill in a way. They were built, you know, on a swampland, you know, rocks filled in, logs filled in, brought it up above the water level, and then the DPW was built on top of it. Hopefully that's not the case for this facility. The other thing that we find a lot is, you know, they've been built next to wetlands and there is a organic layer underneath them. Typically for ground improvements, you know, early on in this process, we carry about $30 a square foot. That's usually just for the building footprint, not necessarily for the pavement.
Were you asking if we test this or?
Well, yeah, I guess. Should we
that's-
do some of that sooner? Well, what's the scope? What's the, you know, if there's no issue at all versus it's really
Yeah.
poor, you know, what's the added impact on the cost of that? And then, what is there, drilling we could do now to do research and?
Yeah, that's what, you know, with the money that you allocated the last town meeting, I think that would be a very wise move on the town to have. Get some test pitting and some soil boring done. We usually recommend both of them. Test pitting, you know, gives the geotech engineers a better vision. You can imagine if they're just drilling, they hit refusal. You don't know if it's just a boulder or if it's actually ledge. So they can get a lot more information if their soil borings are accompanied with test pits. So I think that would be a very wise, diligent move by the town to pursue at this point.
So test pits and what was the other one?
Soil borings.
Soil
Yeah.
boring.
Yeah.
What kind of distances, or is that sort of depend on what you find?
So it is, we usually would try it at this early stage, we try to do it all in one day. And we try to get as much as possible. They would do some early research on the property to try to, usually from geotech mapping, they can probably estimate like what's the soils, do they have to do drive and wash, or can they just do split spoon? So bottom line is they'll just try to get as much done as they can in one day.
And the nice thing is like test pits, we can do test pits. We have.
Well, that's what I
the
was
ability to do
wondering.
Test pits and, you know, borings, lay out some borings and bring in a contractor for the day. You go to refusal or go to 50 feet or whatever, you know, but like you said, it depends on the conditions.
Yeah, they can usually get anywhere between 3 and 5, maybe six borings in a day, depending on the conditions. And you know, at least that and test pits, depending on the equipment that they have and the site conditions as well.
And I would add, if we are looking at that alternative site, you would want to have an idea of where the facility is going to locate, to know where to do those borings.
And on your drawings, have you, more than drawings, have you gone down to that site and physically laid out where the buildings would be? Or have you done more just like on a piece of paper?
More just on a piece of paper. Yeah, using GIS information and property mapping. We don't have survey. You know, we got the GIS contours, but you know, those actually are pretty good, very helpful for this level.
Question on the last slide with the timeline on it.
Mhm.
If we can go back to
Yep.
that. Two questions. Can you outline roles and responsibility and what Weston and Sampson does on any of this? And the second ask is, can you layer in rough and tough money on that timeline? Could you know, you estimated a $30 million nut there
Yeah.
in this cost per square foot.
Mhm.
What hits before the big nut and where does the big nut hit on the
Yeah.
timeline? If you could give
Yeah.
us estimates, I'm a finance guy, so
So
it would help plan.
So, and that's an interesting question because there's a lot of different variations about the way that this work can proceed, right? So it's with the pricing, you saw the way that pricing has gone up and towns are feeling the strain as it is. And so towns have been taking different approaches along the way. You know, years ago, a lot of towns would go for the whole fee,
right? They go for design and construction fees at once, at one town meeting. And now they're kind of getting away from it. They're breaking it into smaller pieces. They'll go schematic design. Schematic design is kind of nice, because that gives you a better picture about what this facility will look like. Might not be drawn on paper, but it'll be, a lot of it will be written out in narrative form. And we can take that to an independent cost estimator who can give us a more accurate representation of the cost. You know, so sometimes they'll break it out. Okay, we're gonna take it up to schematic design, get an accurate cost estimate, and then we'll take it forward from there. Sometimes they're taking it, you know, through design, in bidding. And one thing that a lot of people are doing now, which is something I've never felt comfortable with, but I understand why people are doing it now, is they're getting their design funds, they're taking it up and bidding it, and then taking that bid in hand to town meeting to vote on it. So, yeah, it's, you know, the designer's fee, 2025, I think a lot of it would probably be spent in 2025. I think that's where most of that money would be spent is my guess. Construction fees not included in 2026.
What are each one of the roles and responsibilities, and compare that to what Weston and Sampson does? What does a designer do compared to what you do?
Oh, yeah, so that's what we would be, that's what we would be doing
You
in town.
would be
We would be the
bidding.
designer. Yeah, we'd be the designer. Yeah.
And what about the OPM?
So the OPM is an independent party that is the mediator, not the mediator, that's the wrong term. They're the project manager for the town. They represent the town. They're an independent party. They're not to say that we're not operating the town's best interest, but it's somebody that would be on the town side and
That's a
asking questions. And
requirement,
it is a requirement. They would be, you know, they would be the interim between the town and us. They'd be the interim between the town and the contractor. They'd be looking over it. They specialize in construction. They specialize, a lot of them specialize in these facilities like we do.
So they would be on the town payroll during the duration of the construction.
They would not be a
phase.
sub to us, correct?
So they would either be,
Separate contract.
yeah, most likely a separate contract. Some towns hire their own, but most likely. Usually 3 or 4 buildings in a row that we knew were common, say a school and,
And you,
yeah, then maybe.
is this a realistic timeline to get to construction on, or is this an unrealistic?
No, I think this is very realistic. I think this committee should think about strategically about when town meetings are. Do you want to hold a special town meeting? Do you want to go to annual town meeting for these funds? And that will help dictate the schedule.
So if it's a $30 million nut in 2026, and, you know, we got a couple of years to go to hit that mark, so it's going to be higher than that, right?
Well, they're escalating it up,
That was
right?
escalated
That was
to
escalated.
26, yeah. And would you carry for escalation?
We carried 8%, and then we went down we went 8%, 6%, 4%.
And those numbers you gave were construction costs, not soft costs, right?
Correct.
Okay. Do you have something in your typical soft costs that you could?
We carry for this level, we just say 10%.
Okay.
It's a general rule of thumb for A&E services. Usually the fee is anywhere between, I mean, it really depends on what's going on, but anywhere between 8 and 12. Or I think the rule of thumb is 8 to 15, but I don't think for this that's realistic.
So you can potentially do the first phase in 2024, you told me, as the designer services, right?
Well, I think what would happen we're not procurement people, so I don't want to speak on behalf of the town. I would think.
No, you could be that. If you
Oh.
won the bid.
Oh,
for that,
yes,
you could
yes,
serve in
yes,
that capacity.
yeah.
And can you serve in the 2026 capacity as well?
Absolutely. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll put out an RFQ, and we can give you an example that will say this this scope of work is for this, and it would probably say due diligence for a feasibility for a new public works facility. And the town, reserves the right to negotiate with that, the selected designer for future tasks.
And then you were saying a lot of them are stop points at different design deliverables. And then at constructions, obviously the
Yeah,
80,
so typically what we do on most projects, and there are some exceptions, and probably for a project like this, it would go, there'd be review and confirmation exercise and concepts, and, that might sound repetitive, you might say, well, you just did that. The thing I would say is it's a very short task, it's a very simple task to go through it, but you're planning for the next 50 years. You want to make sure you get it right. I would highly recommend that you go through that exercise. Then we move into schematic design, which is about 25%, design development, which is about 60%, and then 60 to 75%, and then final construction documents, which is obviously 100%, which would be suitable for bidding. Sometimes we skip some of those steps if it's a smaller project and we're on a faster track.
So I'll ask it once again. So if you ignore the 2026, which now is
Yep.
about $33 million with the overhead, what would the 2025 rough and tough number be, and what would the 2024 rough and tough?
Oh,
number be?
goodness, I'd have to take.
2024 is almost done.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I know, that's why I was saying this is a realistic timeline.
Oh, I think this is a very realistic timeline.
But
Yeah.
not quicker than this, probably.
You're not gonna save 8% by doing it in 2025, because we'll be ready.
Right.
You probably would if you could,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah.
It'd be good, we move fast enough.
Any trends you're seeing in these facilities with like either solar, geothermal, stuff like that, the energy?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of sustainability components. A lot of the facilities that we were doing up until the recent energy code change, we considered to be relatively sustainable. We pride ourselves in easy maintenance and efficient systems. And usually what we're looking for, almost all our work is municipal based and very budget conscious towns. And so what I usually say, it's the best bang for the buck, right? Little extra insulation doesn't really cost the town much, but will save you a lot in the end. Is probably the simplest example I can give you. Now what we're seeing is a lot of people are looking at geothermal and electrification. Some of that's driven by code because they've opted in, but the energy code is really changing a lot of the way people are thinking about these facilities. And all these facilities are designed with a solar rated roof. And what's interesting about some of the changes recently is in the past, it was always better for the town to lease out that roof space. Private vendor can take advantage of tax credits that a municipality cannot. But there's been some changes in the way that that is set up, and now the town can get some incentives that make it more enticing for a town to consider putting on that themselves.
Are you seeing towns go forward with the geothermal and the solar, or just thinking about it?
No, towns are actually moving forward with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're working with Acton right now and Easton, both have
Acton.
30 or so wells.
Wow.
So pretty large systems, and there's some really great incentives through Mass Save. So working with utility providers to help navigate those conversations with the town. I don't want to put a specific number, but it's like a couple $100,000.
We're muni light, so it's a little different, but I know what you're saying.
I don't know if it's fair to say, but I think all the ones that actually we know that are going forward with geothermal or air source heat pumps are, I think, the opt-in code. We have others that are talking about it, but they haven't committed yet to it. Are you guys familiar with the energy code changes? Yeah. Yeah, the opt-in code is essentially electrification.
No fossil fuels.
Sterling has not adopted that on.
No.
Okay. Most of the cities, I think, which, yeah.
I don't think we've seen the DPW put on a solar roof themselves yet. I think they're still,
It was a big discussion in Holden, but it never went anywhere. The light department wasn't that interested in it.
yeah.
Why haven't they gone forward with the solar roof?
Why haven't they? Well, the regulations, it's a fairly recent change. I don't know if you know when that changed. It was a year ago, maybe.
When the owner can now get taxed.
Yeah,
It was recent.
it was fairly recent. Yeah,
In the past year.
Because I mean, this is a massive roof.
yeah.
And my second question is we live in New England. You design for New England. I see some pretty buildings going up and I go, who designed that in New England? So what's your strategy on roof design? Because you mentioned that this is an industrial building, it's not a free.
Yeah.
Okay. No offense, okay, but, so what's your strategy on that?
So our buildings are very utilitarian, right? I mean, they really fit the purpose. And you know, but built around function more than aesthetics, right? The roofs are designed to code. Code has changed and evolved over the years. It's designed to code. Most of our buildings, like I said, are the engineered metal building. It's a standing seam metal panel roof, usually a relatively low slope. So it's designed for, it's not just designed for code for the snow ones, but it's also designed for to support solar and HVAC systems that we might.
But
What about
not pretty with gables and all that.
No, not unless you want them. We'd be happy to design them for you.
They're usually just shed roofs.
Yeah.
and-
I've seen some design concepts recently.
Yeah,
And I go, this is New England.
yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we designed some nice looking buildings. Arlington, it was a historic site. Yarmouth was right on a main road. They wanted that Cape Cod look.
Well, that's one of the big mistakes they make is they put it on the main road and it has to be.
It's where their current site was, or they still operate a portion of it, so there's a reason for them to stay there, but yeah, generally people are, you know, looking for something as simple as possible.
That's a good mix, though. I think the admin is fiber cement siding, but then the maintenance and storage go to the metal panel, so there's like a rhyme and reason.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like, you know, you get a lot of, you can get very creative with the administrative space. It's usually front facing, but then you can tuck behind there all the utilitarian operations with the overhead doors. A lot of overhead doors go into a facility like this. You can't make an overhead door.
Is there any value to having vertical development? Most of this is horizontal development. Are there potentials to have some vertical development for savings of money?
Yeah, are you referring to a second floor?
I'm sorry.
Are you referring to a second story?
Yes,
Yeah, so that's actually a very good question. A lot of these spaces don't lend themselves well to a second story, right? Because you've got vehicle access and you've got delivery access that's going to be necessary. So a lot of the space has to be on the first floor. Where we can get creative is the administrative space, the offices, the break rooms, the employee facilities. We can put those on a second floor. Now, mind you, it's a very small area. And what we find is it's not very cost effective because what you have is you're taking an already small area. You at first cut it in half, but then you got to add room for the elevator and you got to add room for the stairs. So.
And most of the ceilings in the non-admin area are 15, 16 feet tall. So you're now essentially going up multiple stories.
Generally, what we find is we don't go a second story unless we have to. Yeah. And we do go to a lot of sites that are very small.
very tight, and we do have to go to second story. Yeah, but that's a very good question.
You had a lot of compares to on that earlier chart.
Yeah, we have more too. We've been involved in 150 different
Were
facilities.
those all yours?
Those are all ours.
Okay.
Yeah, those are all ours.
So then you have a great frame of reference of giving me the 25 and 24 finances that you experienced in those other site plans there. So,
yeah.
so can you dig into that and provide the finance guys here with a little bit of insight as to those bars on the chart had staff and vehicles, I think.
Yep.
It'd be nice to see above that, you know, the 3 phases of cost associated with some of the.
Oh,
projects
boy.
as well.
Oh, boy. So I don't know if I can get you the different phases, but I can definitely get you the total. I can probably, I don't know if I have that, but
Well, you've done enough so that you could probably at least swag without nailing yourself down.
I can definitely do that.
I think what Joe's looking for, correct me if I'm wrong, order of magnitude for OPM and design funds,
Yep.
right? We know what 26 would look like plus soft costs, but you know, that middle ground there. So like we have a little bit of money right now to get the RFQ out, maybe get some geotech stuff done. That middle phase, right? What, I have a rough idea from my memory, but what are you know, order of magnitude wise looking at for that
I
part?
can pull that stuff together. I can have a memo to you with that.
Informal's fine, yeah, something on email or whatever.
And it's not nailing you down. We're just looking for estimates for future planning purposes.
Understood, understood. And I assume we'll be talking about town meeting to town meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily calendar year.
Good.
Yeah.
When's our next town meeting?
May.
May, so.
It'd be tough to have
Every night.
designer funds for, you know, that number by May, I think. Those are due, I mean, budgets are due capital at the end of November.
So what would we go for
Spend
in May
on
for the,
January 15th.
for the, do we have money now for designer services?
Not for designer services, but we have, I would say, money to do some of that geotech work, which we could work through these guys to do.
Yeah.
If really site selection was the first step, you know, and then we need to do that RFQ to properly, you know, procure a designer, if you will, give everyone a crack at it, you know, their package, and like Weston Sampson, I'm sure would submit a package. You guys pick the designer based on that package, and then we negotiate that fee. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. And then that's kind of that number that we would need to move forward. We also need to figure out the OPM deal. When in my experience, the town I was in hired their own OPM on the town payroll because there was a bunch of projects going on. So I've never worked with an outside consulting OPM, so that's kind of a new
That was
thing.
Holden did that?
That's what Holden did, yes. Kind of a new thing for me, so.
You can see if you still know.
That's okay. I said out loud.
Depends on whether it went well or not.
I think for that purpose, he did a good job.
And it made sense. How many projects did he do? 1, 2, at
3 or
least?
4.
Yeah, I mean, it worked
and then
out, you know, it did.
3 or 4 major projects.
Yeah,
and then a bunch of
buildings.
side projects.
Middle school, fire station, DPW building, it worked out.
So for the May town meeting, would we see going for the designer services?
And the OPM
money
services.
and the
probably.
OPM?
And I have no concept of what to ask for at this point, dollar wise. So that's something that's gonna have to get nailed down if we're gonna go for that in May.
I think we could go out for RFQ before that, so we have the proposals, we have the actual costs
Yeah.
in-house, or in our
And that's
hands.
something I can talk to Bill and the finance folks about, you know, this is something that we're working on. You know, here's an order of magnitude from Mike. Let us go through our designer service, you know, our RFQ, and maybe we can put
I
this
think,
in.
because if we get that in for this town
It
meeting,
makes a huge
if
difference.
you don't get it in for this town meeting, you're talking another 8%. So, to get
Another
the-
year
Or a
or
special-
or a
town meeting.
special.
Or more, than you
Yeah,
don't know,
or,
you
yeah,
know what
right,
the
it
future's
could
gonna
be,
be.
yeah.
Right. No, I agree.
hopefully we're seeing stuff level
Really?
up. I'm an optimist.
Would you? When would you go, what would you go for first? The RFQ for designer services or the OPM? What,
I
would
think
you
we're
get the OPM?
if
to
we're
help you
getting
with the
everything
RFQ?
for the May meeting. I think you do both of them
Same time.
between now and then.
Yeah,
Because you can't really sign each one of, either one of them up before that probably.
okay,
I mean, there's a little bit of seed money, but
Good point.
maybe, maybe the feasibility is like a enhanced feasibility study or something, but we don't have enough money to
Right.
release either one of them
Right.
until then. Yes, I'd recommend going to get both of them, so we have the real cost in hand when we go to get asked the money.
That makes me happy.
any other questions for Weston and Sampson?
You need us to stick around for the salt shed?
Maybe, but do you want to break down your?
Yeah.
Or I guess you could just turn it off for now and we can continue on.
So we want to move ahead with the salt and,
Sure. So, as I had mentioned in the email, I was approached after we did the tour, about some concerns with the current condition of the salt shed and how long, its structural integrity, if you will, and how long it might last. Looking at this schedule, to me, it seems like we're okay. If this fails a couple times, we're gonna get to a point where that critical piece of our operation becomes an issue. And in reality, I guess you could say the same thing about the fuel island, and we could start picking pieces out of this project, quickly. But you look at the salt shed and some of the, broken kickers that are on the outside, and I felt it prudent to bring it up to this committee and see if you guys had any thoughts on what you saw, if there's something we should do study wise with it, look at it, have it evaluated. I don't really know where to go. We need it. It's critical. We can't store salt outside. We need salt. So, I have a hard time allocating a couple $100,000 to replace it, to not end up being here or not have it be in the right place if we built it somewhere else. Maybe that isn't even our site. I don't know, so I just didn't know your guys' thoughts after seeing it. If you had any thoughts, if we just keep rolling with it, which we have been, I think it's probably been in that condition for a while.
Yeah.
As long as you can remember. So,
I mean, is there a structural engineer we can get to look at it and
I can try to find one.
recommendations? I mean,
Yeah.
I guess that would be my first approach, is that, is it
And a quick
something
evaluation probably you can see
you
everything,
can
all the framings there.
put some chains across it or something to
Right.
get another couple of years out of it?
Support some of the kickers,
Some cement blocks on each
Yeah,
side,
dead
some
end around the whole-
posts
whole
going
side.
into it or something.
right? I can do that.
I think if it falls, it'll fall very slowly.
As long as nobody runs into it to load it.
It's a long, I mean, that's a big if, but
this is a question for Weston Sampson. Have you guys done any temporary salt sheds? And do you have any idea the cost, like just fabric structures on Deadman that either are temporary that can be moved later on in a different facility?
Yeah, that'd be a fabric
Yep.
structure. Years ago, it was expensive to relocate it. But it certainly, you can certainly move it. I can't think of a recent case where they actually moved it, but yeah, that can certainly be done. Holden has a fabric structure on Benchmark.
Yeah. It's huge. I mean,
And that is a very big facility.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
big structure. I should say.
If let's start with the little quick evaluation. If that is really bad, then we can open that
try to
conversation.
come up with a,
We have the
a
room to
short-term
put it here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just, I didn't want to like double up on, you know, efforts, if you will. We're already trying to make our money go as far as we can here, so. I just wanted to kind of broach that topic. And,
I saw the staging set up there. Was somebody up there looking?
No,
at
so
it?
that's actually a new thing we bought to help us wash trucks out. So we used to do it on a ladder. Get rid of the ladder. Now we're on an OSHA approved scaffolding setup, nice platform, stairs, the whole deal. So much safer for the guys in the winter.
If there was a short-term fix, is there a certain dollar threshold that you could pay to do that without?
It kind of depends on what it is, you know, if it's something that we can do, we'll do it. If it's, you know, anything, like you said, adding blocks, you know, maybe supporting some of those, kickers or whatnot, but we'd have to look at our budget and see, you know, out of operating, I definitely couldn't spend more than 5 to 10 grand, you know, because then I'm depleting all of my building maintenance and we need to maintain the other systems in the building as well. So, and I can talk to Bill about, you know, other options, but that's kind of.
So I'll fess up, I came to Ryan after the last meeting here, and I told him that I couldn't unsee what I saw, okay? And my first concern was human safety, okay? And if somebody's involved in an accident in the building. And that on top of the budget season coming up, which budgets are due on January 15th. So if we have to do anything, now's the time to think about funding to do it. And we're approaching the need season for that building as well at the same time. So a lot of things are converging on that.
Okay.
And,
I think it makes sense to start with, you know, what does it need?
Yeah.
what does it need?
Right.
What does it need to
Right.
make it
Professional
safe?
look at it.
Because operationally, we've made it work.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the most fun, but we make it work. Yes, we need a bigger shed, but I'm like, and Joe brought up a good point, you know, and I think let's get it looked at. Get a professional's eyes on it. I'm not a structural engineer. I'll be the first to admit that. So.
But you think it's something to think about, since we have the landfill area, is it worth thinking about putting another shed, possibly, maybe not ginormous, but at least down there to have it if God forbid something happened to this?
Or better yet, we select the site, we have a good idea of where it's gonna go.
Right.
If we put the
Perfect.
shed down
Yeah,
there,
that would be
Yeah.
ideal.
done, you know what I mean? And then we can use it.
Right.
Yeah,
That's not something that you're not just gonna use once and be
right.
the end of it. It's gonna be something that'll last.
And operationally for us, for a couple of years, we're driving down there to Lowe's. Big
It's
deal.
not a big
You
deal.
know, people
All you
do
have
it.
is just lights, so that's, you have actually lights out there?
Yeah.
You need lights?
Yeah.
No, we have,
Okay.
we have lights inside. You definitely need lights and a light outside on the pole, but we have connections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it collapsed in the middle of the winter, do you think the state would let you take salt from Chocolate Road?
I'm sure we could figure,
Or
we'd have
something?
plenty of towns that would be willing to help us. I mean, in a real pinch, we'd stuff that Quonset hut full and we'd just keep it,
Yeah.
Keep
but we would go
delivering
through that
all the
really
time.
quick.
Yeah.
We actually, at one point, when we did the Quonset, we had mixed sand and salt inside there. It worked. We just kept filling it all the
And
time.
you had it covered with I think one of the pictures showed it covered with a tarp.
Yeah.
Big tarp.
Yeah, it did work temporary. But like I said, you empty it out pretty quick.
Right.
But at least it was on the cover.
You definitely want to keep it dry because it gets wet. It's not happy. And DCR, state will be all over us. Awesome.
You should move on to the next site selection discussion.
Sure, so I just figured that was kind of an open discussion. How do we want to go about this? I know, Blaine wasn't able to join us tonight, but just to speak for him, one of his things was he doesn't want to limit us to 2 sites only. So I just wanted to throw that out there, on his behalf in his absence. That was one of his concerns. I don't really know the best way to go about looking for other sites. I know that obviously those are, you know, this property and the one down at the sand pit are the ones that I'm most familiar with. As far as privates, I don't know where to start for that, but how you guys want to go about it. Do you want to tour that other site at some point? Or stop by, really, it's open during the day.
And it would be good to
Are
get down
there,
there.
are there any posts down there that just sort of mark where it is, if you drive down there?
Where the building would be?
Yeah.
No, it's all been just on paper. I think the best thing to do would be to, if you look at some of those concepts, there's probably some, you can kind of see like where some of the stuff is on the ground versus where the concepts are. It will give you a good idea. It's all pretty close to right at the bottom of the access road. So if anyone who's been down in there, it's kind of a long dirt access road, and then it opens way up into the big sand pit. Most of the concepts are well closer to like the access road, and then the back section is all this back here, which is where the big sand pile is that used to be out in this yard, is now all back out in here. This is all kind of different gravels and sands. If you go back there recently, they're doing the all the highway signs on 190, all that stuff's kind of, we're using that as a stockpile area. We allowed them to use that. So that's kind of where the building would be, is kind of where all that stuff is. So I'd be happy if anyone wanted to go down during the day. I'd be happy to meet anyone down there and kind of give you a lay of the land of what we're looking at, access wise, stuff like that. Or we can do an organized.
Maybe good to try to set that up.
Yeah.
Sometime, just
Yeah, I mean, any
time or days.
if we do it all together, we'll have to post it, which is fine. And if not, I can meet anyone down there really.
In terms of other sites, I don't know if Blaine had any thoughts. I sort of, in my mind went through the major routes in town and town land and didn't come up with a whole lot. That's the size that we would need. Even.
Right. The only one that keeps coming up is that, whatever that one on Choxton Road was, that would probably be more of a retrofit than a new build. I know the light departments looked at that site a lot. That's the one, used to be All Tech, used to be where they had the bucket trucks. Now it's just like a warehousing place. I don't know.
Bradford.
Is it Rapid? Yeah. Light department's been trying to get in there for a long time and they have not had luck. To my knowledge, I've talked to Matt about that a couple times recently. I know like there's a machine shop on Northeast Boulevard for sale. It's just a very small parcel, only a couple acres, no bigger than this parcel.
Selling Sega?
Yeah,
Oh, no kidding?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
yeah. So
Sigler.
Sigler, yeah,
Sigler.
Sigler.
I know.
That lot on Pratt's Junction and 190, but that's small.
That's the one where Pertano's right at the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, Favor owns
Yeah,
that, I
right,
think.
Brian owns it. I think he owns that.
Yeah, I believe what you see is, you might have a better idea.
Basically what it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's a-
and it's a big giant hill. in the
Slopes
back.
there.
I think we can all agree that this is not the location to put a new building, right? So.
Yeah.
And I've been down to the other site, for Pizzo, and honestly, I think that is the location the building should go. It's close to the highway. You're really not bothering anybody once the trucks go by the condos for nighttime maneuvers, like
Right.
here, I know there's been some issues, but I mean, everybody's welcome to go down there, but, and the town already owns it, so there's no expense, right?
And,
And what other use would the town use that for? It's not like something that,
well, the nice thing is that we're the ones that use it.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, looking at these concepts, it would give us more than enough space still to do what we need to do. I'm not gonna say it's the most organized thing right now because it doesn't have to be, but we have a little bit of material over here, a little bit of material over here. It's, we bring all our spoils there, we run our spoils through our screener and we haul that stuff back out. And then we bring all our wood there, our wood debris. We'd still have room for all that stuff and it could just be managed a little tighter. I'll be the first to admit it's not managed very tight right now because it doesn't have to be. We have so much space back there. We're not mining sand out of there like we used to. It used to be a sand mine. It is a registered mine. I fill out the paperwork every year. So, but we're not taking material out. We actually brought everything back that we had taken out.
water run all the way up that Pizzo's land
Yeah, so Patriots Way, which
Yeah.
is the little, and the police station, there's a water loop right
right there.
through there. Yeah.
And additionally, this department can keep running.
Yes.
right? So
That's
no
that's
temporary
a huge-
cost.
Yeah, that's a huge plus to go into the.
What do you
totally
see as far as, how does that work? Not that I want to be involved in that, but, people building on their same sites. Do you see people moving a lot, or do you see people building on their existing sites a lot?
Usually it's building on their current site. And the reason being is it's easy, right? It's
For a site, yeah. In a
for a site.
city, I guess.
If you don't have the land, there's a lot of outcry, not in my neighborhood.
True. I think we'd hear some stuff from Patriots Way, but I think it would be more just not necessarily tangible, because you're pretty far separated down that hill. I don't even know if they would really even hear the backup alarms. And our trucks are not that loud. You know, we're not straight pipe.
No residential.
Just
The
there's
condos.
a condo
Yeah.
complex.
There, yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty far away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
way down the hill. It's
This will have lots of loops, you don't really have to back up very much, so.
right. It's true. It's a good point.
But I think it's important when we go to sell this at town meeting to say we looked at other sites.
Right.
Or at least say, we tried to find other sites and couldn't, that made sense.
And what did you guys just go through? Were you looking at town parcels when you guys did the multifamily thing? And you were looking for big properties, right? So that essentially would be similar to what we would be looking at here, is big open properties.
There's not much out there that you're gonna not get resistance from.
Right. I mean, there's like a landlocked thing on Haywood Road that's in the middle of, you know, the woods. That's a tough spot to build.
Maybe we
a-
could get a list of those from Bill, just
I
to-
can-
and.
just
put
so we can
Put on
say
the
we did our due
agenda, and,
diligence.
you know, if there's 8 sites, we can
Were
spend
those all town?
2 minutes
land, or
talking
were they
about them.
Both private. and-
Yeah.
Okay.
Just,
You guys can pull that?
We do that for a lot of towns, if it's helpful. You know, it sounds like a daunting task. We actually have worked in towns that they'll say, we want to look at every town-owned property. We've worked in towns that say, we don't want to leave any stone unturned. Look at every property. And we just use GIS data, and there's some amazing information that you can get there that you filter out. Like, we know about how much land you're gonna need.
Right.
If
Zoning.
if we think you need 3 acres with the setbacks, we're probably gonna start looking at 2.5 acres, right? Just to make sure we don't rule out anything, and just filter out, lots that are smaller than that. You filter out lots that you can look at upland areas. You take out the flood zone, take out the wetland, take out the river, and you get the upland area, and then you can look at the use of the property. And generally you get down to a manageable list that you can start
We could probably go through that list and say, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no, maybe, no,
Yeah.
yeah.
would be a
We
good
can do that.
exercise to
That's
do.
like, yeah,
what you
why don't
say.
you go ahead and do that. That would be great.
And the other thing I just want to point out is buying a piece of property that has a structure on it already isn't gonna meet the needs of what the department is looking for.
Right.
Recently I was in Chelmsford, they have a beautiful facility,
Been there. Yep,
there's posts everywhere.
yep. It's difficult. That's the one retrofit we visited. And, like you said, there's columns all over the place, and you're weaving trucks in and out. It's just like, you're driving a parking garage pretty much, but yeah.
Ryan, have any landowners approached you with, hey, how about my land?
Nope, nope, they have not. And I can tell you that through this, or through some other projects that we have, we're gonna be doing a very similar piece. We have a couple of projects that are gonna require Article 97, which is a land swap with DCR. Much smaller scale, we'll be looking at different parcels, but because we'd be taking some property from DCR, we need to give them some property. So it's gonna be a lot of property looking at in the next couple of years, as to what we have, what we can use for other things. So, I have not been approached by anything. I would love it if I was, but. I think it's important to stay in a somewhat industrial area, out of a neighborhood, the not in my backyard thing, as, annoying as it may sound, is a real thing. I can relate to it, you know what I mean? I don't fault anyone for it. I don't blame the people on Woodside Belmont one bit. It's loud in the winter. We're in and out of that salt shed. How many times you backing up every time we load? At least 100. Got, 10 trucks, 3 loads apiece, couple loads each storm, and next thing you know, it's 2 a.m. and everyone's awake. So I think that's an important piece.
If we're awake, they're awake.
Here you go. Good point.
Would the DCR or anyone else have any interest in this property? DCR to preserve it maybe, or?
That's an interesting
Anyone
thought.
else? So-
That's probably the question I get asked the most, not, we have property for you, it's what are you gonna do with this one? I'm sure they would be interested in it. Yeah, that's interesting, especially for those other projects, the well site and 62-140, that's really unique. Would delay it a bit, those projects, 'cause this wouldn't be available for them, but that's a unique thought. But I mean, we're surrounded by DCR, you know, except for Carini.
Yeah.
That river's right there, so.
Anything else on site selection?
No, I think if those guys go through a, you know, kind of a iterative process and get, you know, get some sites together, we could look at them, even if it's a list of, you know, 10, 20, whatever, however it gets drilled down. Take a peek, I'll have that. I'm just trying to see if you'd have it for next meeting or in a month.
Is the next meeting a month from now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's next topic. What's the next meeting gonna be?
Well, that's up to you guys. You guys tell me.
Get your phones. Well, so when do you want the next meeting?
Next week.
Wait a minute,
Keep this moving, right?
I mean, a month out is the 13th. We stay Wednesdays.
I'm open.
It work?
So what I will try to have for you guys then is that some example RFQs for designer services. And do you have anything for OPM services? Do you have anything for OPM?
I could find something.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, we got.
Okay,
today.
yeah.
So if all of us go to the site together, we have to post that? So
Yeah, if you all go together, we have to post it, which I have no problem doing, if there's a time that works for everybody. You know, obviously it's gonna be getting dark. By that time, actually, it'll
Yeah,
be getting dark. So I have no, whatever works.
Be good if we could all go together,
Yeah.
because I could, you know,
Yeah,
hear the comments.
Try to pick a Saturday morning. I mean, how many people could do it during the week in the morning?
I could do it most
We
mornings.
could, I mean, we could. We could
We're in at
probably do
7,
8
so-
o'clock or 7 o'clock.
yeah,
or something like
that's
that.
totally fine. You've been there, so it might be tougher for you.
I could probably make some time.
Yeah. You guys tell me and I'll make sure we're there.
Want to do the morning of the next meeting? Sooner than that.
I cannot do that morning, but I think we should do it sooner.
Okay.
I mean. Or is anybody, the week of the 28th?
Wednesday? The 30th?
That works for me.
What time?
I'm early, so doesn't matter to me, whatever time.
Like 8 AM?
It's fine.
8 something.
So what I'll do is I'll post it for that location, essentially. We'll just meet there. I'll make sure I get that posted. And we'll go from there.
We'll just keep doing meeting to meeting for now.
Yes,
And then
that's fine with me.
What was it, the 30th?
30th, yeah.
The 30th and then 11, 13.
Any other comments, anybody? Not? Motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion is